Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're taking a look at Tom Clancy's HAWX 2. Now this is a flying arcade, and there's a reason why we're here. Number one, we do have 99K and 4070 Ti, and this completely outranks the game's requirement, as the minimum CPU for this game, it needs to be an Intel Pentium 4 with a 3 GHz, well, frequency essentially, or the clock speed of the CPU, and recommended CPU is an AMD Athlon 64 3000 or higher. Now for the GPU requirements, the minimum GPU is GeForce 6800 with at least 128 megabytes of video memory, and recommended GPU is NVIDIA GeForce either 7th or 8th series with at least 512 megabytes. And considering the age of the game, because this game came out when the Windows XP was still the best operating system, they are pretty decent. They're not over the top, but they're pretty much, you know, you kind of need to think about what you have. But the funniest thing, and this is the reason why this game is back here, this game natively, even though it's from early 2000s, it actually supports Trustmaster 1600 HOTAS. I have no idea how, but it does it. Now, granted, it only supports the joystick binds, and the throttle, which is a separate piece of the kit, is not even recognized, but it still controls the thrust of the engines. So that's an interesting one. Outside of that, what we're gonna do is max this game out as per usual. So 2K resolution, 8 times anti-aliasing, no vertical sync, full screen, everything else is cranked. Now, when it comes to terrain tessellation, and this is, I think, a controversial topic. In general, if you enable DirectX 11, you will get the terrain tessellation, but at the same time, you're not gonna see terrain because you're gonna be up in the air. So, you know, you can pick your poison, so to say. It's not really gonna matter in general. We need to slightly adjust all these things because they keep changing back. From the weird thing, this game is so old it does not understand the new GPUs or CPUs, so let's try to run a benchmark and see if it even launches, because I'm a little bit curious how much frames we're gonna get in it. And here we are. So we're pulling 1.7 gigs of video memory allocated, 6.4 of RAM, and we're above 60 frames. So let's just wait until this benchmark finishes, and we're gonna take it for a quick spin with the HOTAS itself, just to have a feel for it, because back in the day I played this game with a keyboard and mouse, and it was a little bit tedious, and I just want to see the implementation of this particular setup. Now, this is an arcade game, there's nothing realistic, there's no simulation. I mean, honestly, if you call this game a simulator, a lot of people are gonna come after you, but outside of that, you know, all things considered, the terrain and all the visuals for the, at least the map itself or the level, is coming from GOI, which back in the day was one of the companies that were supplying the 3D satellite images that are directly translated into the level. So all of this is essentially a 3D satellite image, something like Google Maps, but just with heights and lows. So let's see how many much more frames we're gonna get in this, and we'll go from there. So what do we have? Maximum frames we have achieved is 717, average 293. I did see some dips down to like 140, but at least the game does recognize the CPU and the GPU. It probably has no idea what these numbers mean, but this is actually good enough. So what we're gonna do is go and have a single mission with a free flight, and we're gonna go over Tokyo for the simple reason that there's a lot of buildings there, so I would assume that it might actually look a bit nicer than just a desert or Scottish Highlands, because it is how it is. So here we are, and we're already somewhere mid-air, and I'm using my HOTAS to actually move it around. And in all honesty, this is not half bad. Let's go full throttle here. I'm sorry, the parking brake was on, so we almost stalled there to the unsuspecting eye, but instead of using keyboard or mouse, this actually feels pretty decent. Now, as you might imagine, the overall control scheme is very simple. You don't get blackouts, you don't get redouts, and stall is the closest you're gonna get to any sort of actual realism, if you can actually even call it that way. But hey ho, let's see if we can find the bridge and do a low pass below it. Now obviously the DCS players will see this and be like, what the hell is this thing? But you know, this is what we used to have back in 2000s, and we thought this is good. Now obviously all the models for the buildings and the weather conditions and the water are non-existent, but nevertheless, so you know, it is how it is. Let's see if we can just get some altitude here, try to get some rockets into the buildings and see. So far we're getting way above 60 frames, we're pulling 1.7 still, 6.5 of RAM, and I would want to say that, you know, this is definitely not the worst case scenario when it comes to games like these. Let's go for some high rise, I think. This looks like a good spot. Oh, and we're using the upper one for aiming. Now that's a bit wrong, but hey ho, who am I to judge? Usually the laser aiming is a bit different, but hey ho. And yeah, the jaw and pitch is kind of weird. Like you do get the rudder pedals, I would want to say, on the T1600, but I don't want to say it's working too much. Probably you can map them, but hey ho. Let's see if we can just go for another pass real quick, and let's just slow ourselves down a bit. Because obviously this is an emphasis on arcade rather than reality, so it is how it is. We had to stall before we could actually hit the target, but there we go again. A little bit of burn marks on the building, and that's as far as this actually goes. But yeah, overall, even flying in a relatively congested area, I would want to say we're dropping too low out of 7, so we're around 500 for 80 frames, which obviously is plenty. Now, the fact itself that this game will take place in the sky, we can just go all the way up until we stall out of the speed. You will see what I mean, because obviously DCS and Microsoft Flight Simulator is more concerned about quality near to the objects rather than up in the air, and this game is complete opposite, so don't want to completely burn out, but yeah, this is your regular environment where you're gonna be in this game. If you ever go downwards, there will be some bombing missions, there will be some stealth missions. You might see some of these buildings, but in general I would want to say that your regular view of the world will be just essentially straight ahead. And there's a pond, so that's good to know. I think we can also go for... Oh, and there's a wall of the current level, because they thought we've played enough. Okay, fair enough. Let's go back to the city skylines real quick. Very arcade-ish movement control, I must say. The pitch is also kind of a little bit of a yaw without any rudder input, which Might confuse some people who are not used to arcadish controls, but hey, then again, if you play DCS, the chances of you coming to this game are literally below zero. There's no way in hell you're gonna come to this game with a professional HOTAS setup and experience and be like, oh yeah, this is fun. I mean, it's fun for regular people like me, but for anyone who's seriously into sims, or sim flying, or sim fighting, even Elite Dangerous, or anything else in between, you're never gonna touch this game. Also, getting this game to run on Windows 11, not exactly a chore, but Ubisoft is not making it easy. So you might want to double check if your Ubisoft account actually allows you to do that. But yeah, outside of that, pretty simple game, and it runs pretty well. And I guess that's all I wanted to do today, is just show you that this game is still alive and it supports the Trustmaster 1600 for whatever reason. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Over now.